Welcome to the deep dive. You're looking to get a handle on financial freedom, maybe even early retirement.
Yeah, and you want that knowledge fast, but, without getting lost in the weeds.
Exactly. So today we're digging into excerpts from Robert Kiyosaki's Retirated Joven y Rico, Retire Young, Retire Rich.
Just remember, these are his experiences, his philosophies. It's one perspective.
Absolutely. Our mission here is simple. Pull out the core ideas, the really crucial insights, so you feel informed, not overwhelmed. Okay.
Sounds good. Let's get into it.
So where does it start? This whole idea often kicks off with a shift in thinking, right?
Right. The book opens with this conversation the author had where someone, Larry, I think, challenges him to look beyond just like surviving.
Yeah, beyond just paying the bills, to actually think about real financial independence.
And Kiyosaki's immediate reaction is feeling like a chicken. That's pretty relatable.
Totally.
Yeah.
Just focused on getting by day to day. I think a lot of people feel that initial fear when you even start thinking about big financial goals.
Especially if you feel insecure right now. It makes
Yeah.
you wonder, how many people just stop there.
That feeling, that vulnerability, it often signals you're right at the edge of a big change.
He mentions another key moment, a talk with his rich dad before he left Hawaii.
Leaving comfort, basically. Hawaii felt safe. The future, totally uncertain.
And then, not long after, he's on this snowy mountain, feeling weak, insecure, the same feelings he had earlier.
And that's the crossroads moment, isn't it? He realizes, okay, I either grow, change my whole perspective, or I just...
Give up, go back to what's familiar.
Right. It shows how those moments of feeling really weak can actually force you to make a decision, a real turning point.
But then even achieving the goal, retiring early, not necessarily the end of the story.
You'd think so. He retired at 47, his wife Kim at 37. They sold the business, invested. Sounds like the dream, right?
It does. But then came this unexpected feeling, restlessness.
Feeling useless even, wanting to work again despite having the freedom not to.
It reminds me of that advice he got from someone named Neil. Take a full year off, do nothing. Because it's such a rare thing to stop working in your prime.
Yeah, it really challenges that idea that early retirement is just, endless vacation. There are psychological hurdles too,
You have to figure out what gives you purpose beyond the 9 to 5.
which kind of leads into his next thing, right? Finding a new drive.
Exactly. He reads this article about a couple retiring, but much later, in their late 50s. And it gets him thinking.
So he starts speaking to mortgage bankers, using his own story.
Yeah, and he's pretty direct about it. He just drops his and Kim's retirement, ages 47 and 37.
Whoa, that must have gotten their attention.
Definitely. Then he asks the killer question. What made the difference?
Powerful. It forces people to rethink everything.
And he frames it as gaining, 18 years of additional life compared to retiring at 65?
Focusing on the value of youth, energy, freedom. It's not just about money, it's about time. Quality time.
Though he admits some people were cynical. Not everyone wants to hear that their reality could be different.
Naturally. Challenging the status quo always gets pushback.
Okay, so this brings us to a really key concept for speeding things up financially. Leverage.
Ah, leverage. Not just working harder.
No, exactly. It's about working smarter. Using tools, systems, things that multiply your effort.
He uses some great analogies. The fishing net versus trying to grab fish with your hands.
Or the farmer with more land producing more. It's about amplifying your results.
Even technology, like a computer, is leverage, but only if you use it effectively.
Right. The goal is to find the leverage that works for you to build assets faster.
And that rich dad saying sums it up. People who only work hard have limited leverage. A constant reminder.
Which leads into another type of leverage.
Yeah.
Maybe the most important one, mental leverage.
Okay, mental leverage. Tell me more.
This is the idea that your mindset, your reality, is the foundation. He tells that story about his rich dad buying beachfront property.
Before he was actually, conventionally rich.
Exactly. Hinting that there's a way to think about buying investments you seemingly can't afford.
So you have to fundamentally change how you see things. Expand your own reality.
Yes. Make it a habit. He quotes, "Thoughts and words become flesh." Your thinking literally shapes your financial world.
It's like having ideas that seem, outside the norm. Like the Wright brothers example he uses.
People thought they were crazy, right?
Yeah.
But they believed flight was possible.
And he talks about that period, maybe 4 to 8 years, where you're living on faith in your ideas before you see real results.
Yeah, and facing criticism the whole time. people calling you a dreamer, irresponsible.
It takes real conviction to stick with an unconventional path when everyone else doubts you.
Definitely. Now, related to mindset, this idea of focusing on earning versus just being frugal.
Yes. Not just pinching pennies.
Right. He contrasts trying to get rich by cutting back on everything with his rich dad's focus. Learn how to make more money.
It's like that dieting analogy he uses. Starving yourself might work short term, but it's not sustainable. You might even gain more back.
His rich dad felt that constantly chasing discounts was, well, a limited strategy compared to boosting your actual earning power.
Focus on expansion, not just restriction. Makes sense.
And a big part of that expansion for him involves business ownership, especially the tax side.
Okay, this is a big one. The difference in how taxes work for employees versus business owners.
It's fundamental. Employees earn, pay tax, then spend what's left.
Business owners
Can often structure things so legitimate business expenses are paid with pre-tax money. Think car payments, maybe travel, meals, sometimes even childcare if structured correctly within the business context.
That can make a huge difference over time. It's a form of built-in leverage.
But there's a caveat, right? A warning.
Yeah, a crucial one. These strategies are meant to support making more money through the business, not just be used solely to dodge taxes.
Definitely need good professional tax advice there. Don't try to wing it.
For sure. Okay, so another encouraging point he makes, you don't necessarily have to quit your job right away to start building wealth.
Right. Many successful people started building their fortunes in their spare time while still holding down a regular job.
He gives those examples, like HP and Ford starting in garages.
And Michael Dell, building his computer business from his dorm room in college, becoming a millionaire incredibly fast.
While his classmates were focused on grades and parties.
Exactly. And now many of those classmates are working hard, maybe paying off student debt, relying on retirement plans. Dell created a different path.
His luck was really about having a different reality, a different focus, studying for knowledge, not just grades, working without immediate pay for a bigger goal.
It shows that luck often comes from creating opportunities through your actions and mindset.
Which ties into this next idea perfectly. Context being more important than content.
Yeah, this is really insightful. He mentions getting a bad review for his writing in Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Which is kind of funny because he's open about not being a great writer in the book itself.
Right. But then he quotes that article, where in the old economy, content was king. In the new economy, context is king.
And how did his rich dad interpret that?
Basically, to get rich quickly, you need an open mind. You need to see possibilities beyond what you already know or can do. Your reality, your context, has to expand rapidly.
So your mindset, the framework you use to see the world, that's more important than just the facts or skills you currently have.
That's the idea. Trying to get rich with a closed-off scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
Very difficult.
Okay, now let's talk income types. His rich dad had a clear favorite.
Oh yeah, passive income. While he understood earned and portfolio income, the focus was always building passive streams.
Why passive?
Less work in the long run, potentially lower taxes, and the possibility of consistent returns over time.
Compared to earned income, like a salary.
Which gets taxed at the highest rates. He worries about smart young people getting great jobs but locking themselves into that high-tax, work-hard cycle.
It's easy to see how that happens. So this ties into the danger of a static context, right? Getting stuck.
Absolutely. If your mindset is fixed, if you cling to old ideas, you risk falling behind financially. You need to adapt.
He shares that advice from the IBM exec about seeing the future through a 15-year-old's eyes.
Yeah, because adults tend to view the future based on their past. It limits their vision.
So staying current with trends, music, fashion, tech isn't just trivial. It can reflect mental flexibility.
He suggests it can. Being stuck in the past means you invest in the past. Rich Dad said, if you want to be rich, develop your vision, watch the future.
Like Rockefeller with oil, Ford with cars for the masses, Gates with PCs, they saw what was coming.
Unlike, say, IBM's old leadership who initially missed the personal computer wave, vision matters.
So how do you actually do that? Prepare for a future that isn't here yet.
It starts with taking control, realizing that retiring young and rich means training for something new, not just following your parents' plan.
Which is often just work hard and save. Solid advice, but maybe not enough for early and rich.
You need your own detailed plan. He really pushes you to start creating that plan now to avoid just watching opportunities drift by.
And the core of that plan, according to Rich Dad.
Focus on making money, not just saving it. Learn business, learn investing, aim for abundance. having excess money to invest.
Shift from a scarcity mindset, how do I save enough, to an abundance mindset, how do I create more?
Exactly, which requires learning, accelerated learning.
Right. He contrasts years of traditional schooling for a salary with spending maybe less time and money learning skills that could make millions.
And he recommends resources like audio programs, Nightingale Conant specifically, low-cost, high-impact learning from experts.
He mentions Earl Nightingale's Lead the Field, using these as mentors almost.
Yeah. Rich Dad's quotes again, "The truly rich get rich at home and in their spare time."
It's
Yeah.
not your boss's job to make you rich. It's your job taking ownership.
He lists a bunch of authors from those programs, Templeton, Tracy, Ziglar, showing the caliber of accessible knowledge.
So it's about actively seeking out that accelerated education. Now, what about the fast track he mentions?
On that faster path to wealth, he says, established wealthy people care more about what you know and who you know than how much cash you have right now.
Knowledge and network over capital.
In many ways, yes. Your financial intelligence and connections become key. He emphasizes having a plan, specifically a rich plan from the outset.
A plan designed for wealth, not just escaping the rat race.
Which means investing time up front to choose your exit strategy, get the right experience, learn the vocabulary, prepare for that faster track.
And speaking of vocabulary, financial literacy. It seems so basic, but he stresses it.
Hugely important and inexpensive. Just understanding the definitions is a massive first step. Not complex stuff like PE ratios initially, but the fundamentals.
Like what?
Current ratio, debt-to-equity ratio, liquidity.
Mm.
Crucially, the difference between an asset and a liability.
Asset puts money in your pocket, liability takes it out. Simple, but profound.
And understanding earned, portfolio, and passive income. Knowing these terms is the foundation for making smart decisions.
But knowing isn't enough, right? You have to make it real.
Exactly. Yeah. He introduces the wealth ratio, basically. Passive portfolio income versus expenses. A key indicator of how you're managing your life's business.
And many retire poor because they never actually experience significant passive or portfolio income, even if they know the words.
He admits he and Kim knew the definitions for 5 years before they really had those income streams. It took action.
The '87 market crash was their trigger, an opportunity.
Yeah, they bought their first property in '89, and by '94, they had over $10 a month in passive income with expenses under $3K. That's a wealth ratio over 3.
Wow. That shows the power of putting the knowledge into practice, but it takes persistence.
Which brings us to the tortoise and the hare analogy.
Ah, a classic. Rich
Yeah.
Dad saw himself as the tortoise.
Yep. Not from money, not brilliant in school, didn't finish college, not exceptionally talented,
Yep.
but he won because he never stopped.
I didn't stop learning or expanding my reality. That's powerful.
Kiyosaki himself found comfort in that story during hard times. Rich Dad's advice was, even if others are smarter, faster, richer.
If you keep faith, do the hard things, keep moving forward daily, you can win the race.
He also used the 3 little pigs analogy. Poor build with straw, middle class with sticks, rich build solid brick houses. Slow, steady progress builds strength.
A great reminder that building wealth is often a marathon, not a sprint. But marathons have obstacles.
Oh, definitely. He shares their struggle getting bank financing for a property deal. Rejected again and again.
Shows it's not always easy. Even when you know what you're doing, failure's part of it.
The key insight is what they did with the rejections. They learned. They refined their presentation. The 6 banks said yes.
Resilience and learning from failure. Essential.
And then that point, getting rich gets easier the richer you get if you follow the formula. You build momentum.
You have to push your comfort zone. Like when they considered a bigger deal $5 million instead of $4 million.
And suddenly, government financing became easier to access because the larger project created more jobs and housing.
Expanding your vision can literally open up new resources. It's counterintuitive sometimes.
He tells that story about hesitating over a $35K seminar cost.
But realizing that I can't afford it, mindset would just keep him small. Rich Dad saying, your future is determined by what you do today, not tomorrow. Invest in your growth.
So ultimately, it comes back to your context and content, your mindset and knowledge.
Like Ray Kroc with McDonald's or Starbucks. It wasn't just the burger or the coffee. It was the system, the context.
Right. Rich Dad, if you don't change your context or your content, your proportions will remain the same. You need the right framework.
He mentions a friend with a good idea, but no real entrepreneurial context to scale it.
Which connects to Metcalfe's law, the power of networks. The value grows exponentially as the network expands, like phones or fax machines back in the day.
More users, more value for everyone.
And he sees that potential in online platforms like richdad.com, creating global networks for financial learning.
Okay, let's talk about another core distinction. Mindset differences.
Rich Dad's view is that most people operate as employees or self-employed specialists focused on a salary. That's why only a small percentage get truly wealthy.
The wealthy focus on.
Assets. They value assets over just cash. Business owners take risks, yes, but they own the asset at the end, potentially reaping huge rewards.
And the foundation for building and financing those assets.
Financial statements.
Yeah.
Financial education. Understanding your numbers. That's what banks look at for big loans.
So treat your personal finances like a business, get an accountant, track everything.
Income, expenses, assets, liabilities, review them monthly. Take control. Don't be like his poor dad, dealing with money problems alone.
Get professional help. Okay. Another mindset shift. Focus.
Yes. Rich Dad noticed that losers focus on what they don't want. Successful people focus specifically on what they do want.
Your mind gravitates towards the topic. So if you're constantly thinking, don't be poor, your focus is still on poor.
Exactly. You need to consciously focus on wealth, on your goals.
But focus doesn't guarantee you always win, right? He mentions Las Vegas.
Right. Even with focus and good feelings, sometimes you lose. The key is knowing when to quit a losing game.
Rich Dad said losing is part of winning, but losers often stay in too long, trying to prove they weren't wrong. Winners cut their losses.
Which leads to the mindset of a sophisticated investor, managing risk actively.
Not just selling everything in a panic when the market dips.
No. Expect some investments won't work out. Cut losses, learn, move on. He contrasts this with mutual funds, where mass redemptions can force selling and trigger taxes for those who remain.
He sees advantages in real estate here. Leverage from banks, tax deferral possibilities.
And for bigger deals, banks look more at the property's numbers, not just your personal income. Government loans might be easier for projects meeting social needs.
He even says the illiquidity of real estate can be a plus for savvy investors, gives them time to negotiate.
The core message. Investing isn't inherently risky if you know what you're doing. Sophisticated investors can make money if markets go up or down. Requires an open mind.
He contrasts blindly investing hard-earned money with Rich Dad's approach. Making money work for you, often using real estate or paper assets with strategies like hedging.
Right. Middle class might use mutual funds. Rich might use hedge funds. The word hedge itself implies insurance, risk management.
He points out options have been used for centuries to manage risk.
And questions why hedging isn't standard advice in paper assets, like insurance is for real estate.
So a sophisticated investor has money and understands both fundamental and technical analysis. They protect their downside.
Protecting assets from catastrophe is vital for retiring young and rich. Average investors often feel insecure because they lack that control. Don't just invest for the long term and don't panic blindly.
He gives a quick example of using options to control stock with less capital. Leverage again.
Which leads to this almost magical idea, making money from nothing.
Yeah, he gives an example of making $5,000 quickly through a strategy.
Selling something he didn't initially own, creating value out of thin air almost. The power of the mind, alchemy, he calls it.
This connects back to working for free as a kid, training the mind to create money, not just earn it by labor.
Exactly. Developing a different context, one not dependent on trading hours for dollars. He believes most people won't retire young and rich because their context is too limited.
Context trumps content again. The strategy seems simple if you have the right mindset.
But the idea of making $5 cares in 5 minutes, it's outside most people's reality. So they dismiss it, make excuses, shows how context limits possibility.
Sharing these successes isn't boasting, it's highlighting those context differences.
He even suggests network marketing sometimes, partly for the educational aspect that can shift your context.
Okay, another key distinction. Trader versus entrepreneur.
Rich Dad's view. A trader or craftsman produces for themselves. An entrepreneur builds teams to achieve something bigger.
Entrepreneurs get paid when the team succeeds, not just for their own work, like the contractor coordinating tradespeople.
And building that team requires
Integrity. He tells that stark story about firing key people for having an affair.
the principle being, if they deceive their family, they deceive anyone. Clear values are crucial in leadership.
Wow. Okay, so as we wrap up, he proposes a kind of final test for you, the listener.
Yeah, an optional exercise. Ask people you know, friends, family, colleagues, some challenging questions about money.
The goal isn't to argue, but to listen and understand their financial reality, their context.
You might hear negativity, excuses. Just listen. It reveals their mindset.
He suggests specific questions. Prefer working harder or smarter? Views on risk. Who are your 6 closest contacts and what are their money attitudes?
It helps you see if your circle supports your goals, or if maybe you need some new influences. He mentions richdad.com again for connecting.
Rich Dad. Money is just an idea. This exercise uncovers all those different ideas.
And finally, Kiyosaki reflects on his own true starting point.
Realizing after talking to Rich Dad that just knowing stuff wasn't enough, he had to push his own reality.
Deciding to leave the nest, to actively seek out that world where money could be made without huge risk or capital.
The journey truly began with the decision that such a world was possible. Then he went looking for it.
So summing up this deep dive, what are the big takeaways?
Mindset, that context is paramount. Leverage goes way beyond just working harder. Financial education is non-negotiable.
Planning for the future is essential, and constantly expanding your reality, challenging what you think is possible.
Yeah, retiring young and rich isn't just a formula, it's a whole journey that starts with that shift in thinking, questioning the norms.
It requires a willingness to be different, maybe even misunderstood for a while.
So we really encourage you to reflect on your own context. What beliefs about money are shaping your reality right now?
And maybe pick one insight from today that resonates, something you can start exploring or applying.
Which brings us to our final thought for you. What is one small, concrete action you can take today, right now, to begin expanding your financial reality?